I still remember the first time I went scuba diving. I was 17 years old and visiting cousins who lived in Honduras near the island of Utila. My cousin Al invited me to dive with them, and I was excited. I had gone snorkeling before, but never diving, and I couldn't wait. Just a few days before, my friend Brian had warned me about some of the dangers of scuba diving. He told me not to hold my breath while coming back to the surface because it could cause an air embolism, which is an air bubble into artery or veins that can result in a heart attack, stroke, or even respiratory failure. As I thought about Brian's advice, I realized there were probably other things I didn't know about scuba diving. So I said to Al, hey, is there anything else I need to know? But all Al said was, no worries, Wes, just follow me. It was a beautiful dive. We were in the crystal clear bay of Utila. The sea life was amazing. I was overwhelmed by the beautiful fish, the plants, and the reef. It was picture perfect. So perfect, in fact, that I lost track of how deep I was. I was examining some barracuda fish when all of a sudden I realized that my scuba tank was dragging. It was getting heavier and heavier. Then I realized it was getting more and more difficult to breathe. That was a scary feeling. But at the same time, Al approached me and pointed at the pressure gauge on my tank. We were 90 feet deep. Al realized I was struggling for air, gave me his octopus regulator, and we immediately started back to the surface. I can't tell you how relieved I was to get my head above the water. Once we were back on shore, Al finally gave me some scuba diving instructions. 2 things, Wes, he said. 1, when your tank starts to drag like that, it means you're out of air. You shouldn't keep going deeper. You need to get up. And 2, what were you doing kicking at those barracudas? That's not a good idea. They could attack you. I felt pretty sheepish. All I knew about the barracudas were that they were long, skinny fish that kept staring at me. My first dive seemed like a failure. Not only had I run out of air and lost track of how deep I was, but I'd also harassed some fish with some seriously sharp teeth. Oops, I kind of wish Al had taught me those lessons before scuba diving instead of after. But it ended up okay. One of the valuable lessons I learned that day was to pay attention to warning signs. The scuba diving tank has a pressure gauge on it that tells how deep you are. It's important to pay attention so you don't go too deep. Fish like barracudas should be warning signs in themselves. They have big teeth, and it's not smart to kick at them. By becoming aware of these warning signs, I was able to go scuba diving again in a safer and more confident way. Warning signs. They're very valuable when we pay attention to them. Whether you're scuba diving, driving on the freeway, or trying to optimize your health, you need to pay attention to warning signs. Diabetes has warning signs too. In fact, there are at least 7 factors that increase the risk for diabetes. Let's take a look at those warning signs now. Inactivity. When was the last time you had a good workout or went for a nice long walk? Despite the many health benefits of exercise, only 3 in 10 Americans get the recommended amount. Inactivity increases the risk for many diseases and contributes to an estimated 300,000 deaths each year in the United States alone. Many of these deaths are from diabetes and heart disease. The Nurses' Health Study suggests that getting regular exercise can reduce the risk of diabetes by 30 to 50%. We'll take a closer look at exercise in an upcoming session. Just as with the other risk factors, there are exceptions. Sometimes even active people develop type 2 diabetes. Screening is important for everyone, whether you exercise regularly or not. Excess weight. Being overweight or obese dramatically increases diabetes risk. In fact, research suggests that maintaining a normal weight or losing weight if necessary could prevent 50 to 70% of new diabetes cases. But if you're overweight, don't despair. Even a modest weight loss of 10 pounds can dramatically improve blood sugars and overall health. Every little bit helps. We'll take a closer look at weight in an upcoming session. It's also important to note that not everyone with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes is overweight. Diabetes is a complex disease and can be caused by multiple factors. Screening is important regardless of weight. Age. There's a strong correlation between diabetes and age. According to the research from the National Institutes of Health, rates of diabetes and prediabetes dramatically increase with age. 16% of teenagers are pre-diabetic and at risk for developing diabetes. This jumps to 47% of adults between the ages of 40 and 59, and a whopping 76% of adults over 75 years of age. But don't let the numbers fool you. Age doesn't cause diabetes or prediabetes. I've seen patients as young as 7 with advanced prediabetes. Although type 2 diabetes used to be known as adult onset diabetes because it rarely occurred in children, the name was changed to type 2 diabetes because more and more young children began developing the condition. The same unhealthy habits that cause illness in adults can also cause illness in children. On the other hand, the same habits that keep kids healthy can also keep adults healthy. There are so many adults and senior citizens who don't have prediabetes or diabetes. Age may increase the risk, but it never independently causes diabetes. Currently, the American Diabetes Association recommends that adults age 45 and older are screened for prediabetes and diabetes every 3 years. However, in my opinion, screening should start much sooner. There are many adolescents and young adults developing this condition, and we can't afford to let them slip through the cracks. The good news is that regardless of your age or current health status, there's always hope for change. High blood pressure. High blood pressure, also known as hypertension, is another warning sign for diabetes or prediabetes. 1/3 of all American adults have high blood pressure, but diabetics are twice as likely to suffer from the condition. Why is this? Insulin resistance is a leading cause of high blood pressure. Insulin resistance increases the levels of insulin in the blood. This insulin acts as a vasoconstrictor, tightening the blood vessels. This raises blood pressure, forcing the heart to work harder than usual. When I see a patient with hypertension, I automatically assume that they are either pre-diabetic or diabetic, unless testing proves otherwise. Because of this connection, high blood pressure can be a clue that the body has become resistant to insulin. That's why it's very important for anyone with high blood pressure to also be evaluated for prediabetes and diabetes. High blood pressure is defined as 140/90, but any blood pressure higher than 120/80 indicates risk. High cholesterol or triglycerides. High cholesterol and high triglycerides promote insulin resistance. They are warning signs that prediabetes or diabetes may be present. What numbers should you aim for? Your total cholesterol should be at least under 200, but ideally under 160. Your HDL, or good cholesterol, should be higher than 40 for men and higher than 50 for women. Your LDL, or bad cholesterol, should be at least under 130, but ideally under 70. What about triglycerides? Your fasting triglyceride level should be at least under 150, but preferably under 100. Levels over 150 significantly increase diabetes risk. Family history. If you have the family history of diabetes or prediabetes, your risk for developing the disease increases. Diabetes does have a genetic component, but that doesn't make it inevitable. Remember, genes don't determine destiny. The healthy choices you make cause epigenetic changes that will alter your genetic destiny. Ethnicity. Diabetes is no respecter of persons. People from all different ethnicities can develop this condition. In recent years, as the unhealthy Western diet and lifestyle have spread to other parts of the world, people groups that once were diabetes-free are now developing the disease. But although diabetes touches every race, some races are at higher risk. These include Blacks, Hispanics, Asians, Native Americans, and Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders. But although these people groups may have a genetic predisposition to diabetes, it won't develop unless other factors are present. Let's look at the example of Nauru. Nauru is a tiny Micronesian island located in the South Pacific. But although the island is small, its citizens are not. Nauru has the highest rates of obesity and diabetes in the world. The average life expectancy is just 56 years old for males and 65 for females. Nauruans are Pacific Islanders. They fall into a race category that has a higher risk for diabetes. But does that mean the disease is inevitable? No. 100 years ago, Nauru was a healthy island. The inhabitants were hunter-gatherers who survived on food they grew or caught. But in the 1920s, mining companies began strip mining the phosphate deposits in Nauru. This led to an economic boom. All of a sudden, Nauru was a rich island, but the increase in wealth led to a decrease in health. The islanders began importing unhealthy processed foods from Australia and New Zealand. They became less active. The phosphate deposits eventually ran out. The strip mining destroyed the island soil and vegetation. The island declined economically, agriculturally, and in health. Today, the people of Nauru are still languishing. Only 3% of the population can afford the luxury of fresh produce. Most of the islanders live on processed imported foods. Diabetes rates continue to climb. Nauru's story is sad, but it illustrates an important point. Although the islanders had a genetic predisposition to diabetes, they didn't develop the condition until their lifestyles changed. This is good news. Despite genetic predisposition, it's possible to prevent or reverse type 2 diabetes. Do you have any of the warning signs of diabetes? Don't get discouraged. Regardless of your risk level, you can take action to prevent or reverse the disease. Warning signs aren't meant to scare us, but to motivate us to action. They give us a basic understanding of possible risk. But the next step is to take advantage of comprehensive testing. We'll learn more about testing in the next section. We've talked a lot about nutrition theory, but now it's time to make it practical. Transitioning to a green light diet can be overwhelming. If you're like most people, you're a creature of habit. You're already used to buying, preparing, and eating certain types of foods. If you want to improve your diet but don't know where to start, keep listening. In this film, Brenda will share some practical tips for purchasing, preparing, and enjoying healthy food.
The first step is to give your kitchen a makeover. And I'm not talking about new appliances or paint. I'm talking about what's inside your pantry and fridge. You've probably heard the saying that there are no good foods and no bad foods. This has been a key message of national nutrition campaigns for years. The idea is that any food can be part of a nutritious diet if it's eaten in moderation. This is generally true if the bulk of the diet comes from healthy foods and an occasional treat is thrown in. But what happens when the majority of a person's diet consists of foods that are high in calories but low in nutrients? Disease happens. Diseases like heart disease and diabetes. It's no mere coincidence that 70% of our population dies prematurely from lifestyle-related diseases. The idea that all foods are okay serves to justify the consumption of many unhealthy foods. But why do these messages continue to be promoted? Why is so much of our nutrition education dollar directed toward feel-good messages when so many people need desperately to learn how to make choices that promote health and prevent disease? The answer has more to do with politics than nutrition. Nationwide nutrition campaigns are often sponsored by the meat, dairy, confectionery, and soda industries, the very industries that are responsible for increased disease risk. Could it be that the sponsoring organizations are more comfortable with campaigns that promote everything in moderation than they would be encouraging people to eat more beans and vegetables and less meat and processed food? The truth is that some foods are incredibly damaging to health, while others are very protective. And that's why the first step in your kitchen makeover is to take out the trash. In other words, get rid of the foods that are damaging your health. Red light foods are a great place to start. Say goodbye to refined carbs and sweets, unhealthy processed and packaged foods, red light meats, full-fat dairy and eggs, oily foods, foods high in salt and sugar, and red light beverages. Hopefully, you'll also choose to ditch some of the yellow light foods, such as white meat and low-fat dairy products. It may feel wasteful to let go of these foods, but think of it as a huge investment in your health. It's very difficult to follow a healthy diet when you're surrounded by unhealthy foods. By clearing the harmful foods out of your life, you can create room for the foods that will help you to heal. The second step in your kitchen makeover is to stock up on healthy groceries. It goes without saying that if you fill your kitchen with healthy foods, you'll also fill your plate with them. Here's some green light staples to keep on hand. Fresh and frozen vegetables such as dark leafy greens, broccoli, carrots, tomatoes, cucumber, bell peppers, cabbage, mushrooms, zucchini, sprouts, and other non-starchy veggies. Dried or canned beans, hummus, tofu, and milk substitutes such as almond or soy milk. Intact whole grains such as quinoa, brown, black, or wild rice, barley, and oat groats. Starchy vegetables such as potatoes, yams, winter squash, and corn. Whole fresh fruits such as apples, pears, bananas, oranges, mangoes, peaches, plums, melons, and berries. And whole food fats such as avocados, nuts, seeds, coconut, and olives. You can also purchase non-hydrogenated nut and seed butters. Good choices for yellow light groceries include heavy whole grain breads, pastas and crackers, pasta sauce, oatmeal, and healthy meat substitutes. Once your kitchen is stocked with healthy foods, you'll need to know how to prepare them. Wes, can you tell us about some of the excellent resources that would help people with this?
Sure, Brenda. At lifeandhealth.org, you can find a variety of delicious diabetes-friendly recipes and watch short cooking videos to learn how to make them. You can also watch Cooking 101 videos to learn the basics of green light cooking, such as how to cook beans from scratch, how to make whole grains in a crock pot, how to steam vegetables, and more. Make sure you visit Brenda's website, brendadavisrd.com, where you'll find a collection of healthy recipes as well as information about her books, which I highly recommend. Defeating Diabetes, Becoming Vegan, Becoming Raw, the Raw Food Revolution Diet, and Becoming Vegetarian all contain a wealth of health information in a variety of delicious plant-based recipes. Visit the resources section of the course to find more information about the various websites and books that can help.
If you're not much of a cook, don't despair. Healthy eating doesn't have to take a lot of preparation. It doesn't take long to make a veggie sandwich on whole grain bread with avocado, hummus, or veggie meat, to toss a salad, or to make a veggie burrito. Stock up on fresh fruits and veggies for healthy sides. Many grocery and health food stores provide healthy alternatives for frozen dinners, deli foods, canned goods, and even packaged foods. Just make sure to read labels and avoid red light ingredients such as added sugar, fat, and salt. The important thing is to find new food habits that work for you. This takes some practice, so be persistent. With just a little time and effort, you can transform your kitchen into a haven of delicious, healthy choices.
Digestion is something most people just don't think about. We put time and effort into preparing and eating food, but we rarely consider what happens after we swallow it. As long as we're eating healthy food, our bodies will take care of the rest, right? In reality, it's a bit more complicated than that. Digestion is a delicate process that impacts our health more than we realize. I see clients for a variety of health concerns, but no matter what they're struggling with, I encourage each one to optimize their digestion. Why? Poor digestion can exacerbate or even cause a wide variety of diseases, including diabetes, heart disease, cancer, fibromyalgia, and a variety of autoimmune diseases. Digestion also influences energy and mood. The good news is there are simple steps you can take to optimize your digestion. Whether you have digestive problems or you've never even thought about it, these 8 simple strategies will improve your digestive health. First, chew your food. Often we eat in a rush and forget to chew our food thoroughly. But there's a reason why we have teeth in our mouths instead of our stomach. Digestion starts in the mouth. Your saliva contains digestive enzymes that start breaking down the food you're eating before you even swallow. Chewing your food thoroughly will make digestion easier on the stomach and will also help you slow down, enjoy your food, and not overeat. Try to get as much enjoyment as you can out of each bite. Second, don't drown your meals. It's important to stay well hydrated, but my personal belief is that it's better to drink most of your water in between meals. Many people are used to washing down their food with lots of water and other beverages. Drinking too much fluid with your meals may dilute your stomach acid and delay digestion. The stomach does need some fluid for digestion, but it can actually extract the fluid it needs from the blood plasma. So if you stay well hydrated between meals, you won't need to drink much with your meals. If you do drink with your meals, ideally it should be a small amount of fluid. But this takes some planning. If you come to a meal already thirsty or dehydrated, go ahead and drink. The key is to plan ahead. Third, eat a big breakfast, a medium lunch, and a small dinner. I hope you're a breakfast eater. Breakfast will jumpstart your metabolism, energize your day, and make you more alert. It will also help prevent you from overeating for the rest of the day. Breakfast should be your biggest meal. After breakfast, the majority of the rest of the day's calories should come from lunch. Your metabolism is far more active during the daytime than during the evening and night. Your eating should match your body's needs. Eating a large meal soon before you go to sleep can sabotage your weight and interfere with digestion and sleep. Food eaten before bedtime is more likely to be stored as fat than food eaten earlier in the day. If you do eat dinner, try to make it 3 or 4 hours before going to sleep. Your digestive system needs to rest just like the rest of your body. Remember, eat like a king for breakfast, a prince for lunch, and a poor pauper for dinner. Fourth, avoid snacking. You may have heard that it's healthy to eat 5 or 6 small meals each day, or to eat a mix of regular meals and snacks. Personally, I believe it's best to avoid eating between meals. The stomach is kind of like a washing machine. Imagine starting a load of laundry. 30 minutes later, you realize you forgot to throw in your muddy jeans. Good thing the cycle isn't over, you think, and throw the jeans right in. 10 minutes later, will your laundry be clean? No, the entire load will be dirty. This is similar to what happens in the stomach. As you fill your stomach with food, it mixes with acid and digestive enzymes. The stomach churns it around. If you dump more food in when digestion is almost finished, it messes up the cycle. This can delay stomach emptying and slow down digestion. It takes the stomach about 4 or 5 hours to completely digest a meal and to produce enough hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes for the next meal. For this reason, it's a good idea to space your meals at least 4 to 5 hours apart. But what about blood sugars? Many diabetics suffer from low blood sugars as well as high blood sugar spikes. Snacks can provide a quick fix to bring the blood sugars back up, but they don't actually address the cause of hypoglycemia. The reason why blood sugar gets so low between meals is usually because they spike up after meals. When they spike, extra insulin is released that can overcompensate and drive the blood sugars down too low. Eating a snack brings the sugar level back up, but it's only a quick fix. If your blood sugar drops dangerously low, you obviously do need to eat a healthy snack to get it back to a safe level. A balanced snack like half an apple or half a banana with some peanut butter or nuts is a good option. But the best way to avoid the need to snack is to focus on eating balanced, first-class foods at your meals. These foods should stabilize your blood sugars and carry you over to the next meal. Many of my patients find that eating first-class foods naturally takes away their desire to snack. This improves both digestion and blood sugar stabilization. If you put these strategies into practice, you should eventually be able to wait at least 4 or 5 hours between your meals. Fifth, avoid irritating foods. Certain foods interfere with digestion, especially for people with food sensitivities. I've noticed that dairy is often harmful. Dairy acts like an antacid, which can decrease the natural acidity of the stomach and impair the ability to absorb nutrients. Many of my clients feel much better after eliminating dairy from their diets. Other people have difficulties with other foods. Pay attention to how various foods make you feel and then adjust your diet accordingly. Sixth, go for a walk. You already know that walking after you eat helps manage your blood sugars, but did you know that it also improves digestion? Walking after you eat helps to settle your stomach and can prevent bloating and gassiness. It also boosts your energy, prevents you from developing a food coma, and of course minimizes blood sugar and insulin spikes. Seventh, consider supplements. Several nutritional supplements are available for people who have digestive problems such as bloating, gas, delayed stomach emptying, and malabsorption. Elderly people and those with poor digestion often don't produce enough digestive enzymes. This group may benefit from taking live digestive enzyme supplements which are available in vegetarian form. Probiotics enhance digestion by colonizing the gut with healthy bacteria. Activated charcoal is great for digestive detox. When taken orally, it can relieve bloating, gas, diarrhea, and even stomach flu. Activated charcoal absorbs many different toxins. It can also be taken a few times a week just to help cleanse the gastrointestinal system. Activated charcoal is available in both tablet and powder form, but the powder is much more effective. To take it, mix a teaspoon of activated charcoal powder with a glass of cold water. Charcoal doesn't taste too good, but it has tremendous health benefits. Make sure you wait at least a few hours after taking medications to take charcoal, or it may also absorb your medications. And finally, eat with a grateful heart. It's written about the early apostles that they ate their food with gladness and sincerity of heart. I try to eat that way too, because I believe that an attitude of peace and contentment may be the most important strategy for healthy digestion. Several years ago, I attended a medical conference on diabetes. I was shocked when one of the speakers said something that was very insensitive. As he stood up to give his lecture, he said, "Most of you are already thinking this, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. People are just fat and lazy, and that's what causes diabetes." You could have heard a pin drop. The audience didn't know how to respond. Besides being inappropriate, the speaker's claim was overly simplistic. I have clients who exercise regularly and maintain healthy weights, but still have blood sugar problems. I also have overweight clients who don't exercise, but still have optimal blood sugars. How can we make sense of this? Diabetes can be mysterious. Many people with diabetes have disease-causing factors they aren't even aware of. In this section, I'll explain how to identify and address these hidden factors. But first, let's talk about autoimmune disease. Did you know that 1 in 12 Americans suffers from an autoimmune disease, such as type 1 diabetes, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, etc.? To date, at least 80 autoimmune diseases have been identified, and 40 more illnesses are believed to have an autoimmune component. It hasn't always been this way. The rates of autoimmune disease have significantly increased in the past few decades. What causes autoimmune disease? Normally, the immune system works hard to attack foreign invaders like bacteria, viruses, and toxins. But autoimmune disease occurs when the body accidentally attacks itself while trying to fight off the bad stuff. You can think of autoimmune disease as friendly fire. The damage is unintentional, but still has devastating results. In the case of type 1 diabetes, the immune system accidentally attacks the insulin-producing beta cells of the pancreas while trying to attack a foreign invader. The damaged pancreas can no longer produce insulin. You probably already knew that type 1 diabetes was an autoimmune disorder, but did you know that there's another type of diabetes that also has a major autoimmune component? It's called LADA, latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. Just like type 1 diabetes, LADA is characterized by damage to the pancreas, which results in decreased insulin production. But unlike type 1 diabetes, LADA progresses slowly, similar to type 2 diabetes. Sometimes LADA is called slow onset type 1 diabetes or type 1.5 diabetes. LADA can progress for months, even years, before the pancreas is completely damaged. Pancreatic function declines gradually. Because of this slow onset, LADA is often misdiagnosed as type 2 diabetes. This can be dangerous because the underlying autoimmune disease remains unaddressed. But if LADA is caught in the early stages, it may be possible to prevent it from progressing. An estimated 10% of people who have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes actually have LADA. People who have LADA usually have classic diabetic symptoms, are not overweight, develop diabetes before age 50, may have another autoimmune condition, and may have a family history of autoimmune disease. If you suspect you might have LADA, ask your doctor to test you for the antibodies associated with autoimmune-related diabetes. Although type 2 diabetes and prediabetes aren't autoimmune disorders, they can be aggravated by unaddressed autoimmune problems. Let's look at some practical steps you can take to prevent the friendly fire that comes from autoimmune dysfunction. All autoimmune reactions are caused by antigens, or toxins that the body wants to destroy. These foreign substances often come in the form of food toxins and environmental toxins. Although it's impossible to completely avoid toxin exposure, you can significantly reduce your risk by following these 4 simple steps. First, eat first-class foods. Most of the toxins in our bodies come directly from what we eat. The Western diet is much different today than it was a century ago. Simple, whole foods have been replaced with processed, artificial foods. By eating whole, plant-based foods, you can avoid the toxins found in unhealthy foods and gain powerful nutrients that will help to further detox your body. Second, optimize your digestion. Autoimmune diseases can be greatly aggravated by digestive problems such as leaky gut or delayed stomach emptying. By following the strategies in step 6 to improve your digestion, you will also improve your immune health. Third, use toxin-free products. Pay attention to household cleaners and products for your home and car. Invest in toxin-free beauty and hygiene products. And fourth, ventilate. Open your windows, let the fresh air and sunshine in, turn your fans on. Toxins are much more prominent indoors than outdoors. Proper ventilation can help keep your environment clean. Another hidden diabetes factor is the presence of chronic, low-grade infections. You may have noticed that your blood sugars go up when you have an acute infection such as a cold or a flu. But did you know that chronic low-grade infections can lead to chronically high blood sugars? These infections can include gum or periodontal disease, yeast infections, stomach infections such as H. pylori, sinus infections, and more. These infections cause chronic inflammation and negatively impact the entire body. Don't ignore low-grade infections. Pay attention to your oral health. Visit your dentist regularly. Talk to your doctor about other infections you might have and make an action plan for getting rid of them, even if it means taking an antibiotic or antifungal medication. Diabetes is a multifaceted disease with many contributing factors. Your wellness approach should be multifaceted too. The good news is that paying attention and planning ahead can help you outsmart the hidden culprits of diabetes. We've talked about blood sugar tests and tests for the pancreas. By this time, you may feel all tested out, and I don't blame you. But take a deep breath because there's a few more tests to discuss. You see, health is about more than just blood sugars and insulin. Health is comprehensive. Many diabetes programs only focus on controlling blood sugars. This is very important, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. After all, there's a lot of people who have normal blood sugars who still aren't very healthy. In this section, I'll briefly describe some valuable tests for evaluating other aspects of your health. You can find more specific details about testing in my book, Goodbye Diabetes, in Chapter 10. But for the sake of this video, I'll just give you an overview. Let's start with the heart. Heart disease is a leading cause of death in the United States and worldwide. In the US, 1 in every 4 deaths is attributed to heart disease. People with high blood sugars are at an even higher risk. In fact, 2 out of 3 diabetics will die prematurely from a heart attack or stroke. It's very important to evaluate your heart health, especially if you have high blood sugars. Here are some heart tests that I recommend. First, you want to test the lipid profile, commonly called the cholesterol profile. High cholesterol promotes atherosclerosis and heart disease. You can reduce your risk by keeping your cholesterol under control. Talk to your doctor about getting this done. The lipid profile includes your total cholesterol, your HDL, your triglyceride blood fat, and your LDL, the bad cholesterol. Secondly, I recommend an advanced cardiovascular risk profile. As valuable as the lipid cholesterol profile is, it only picks up 50% of your actual risk for developing heart disease. However, if you add the following tests, you can identify 90% of your risk. Your cardiac risk profile should include these tests. SD-LDL is the specific form of small dense LDL cholesterol that more easily promotes plaque. HDL-2B is the most heart protective form of HDL cholesterol that actually removes plaque from your arteries. Lipoprotein a is a form of the bad LDL cholesterol that is 10 times more likely to form plaque than regular LDL cholesterol. Homocysteine is a protein in the blood that increases the risk for atherosclerosis, heart disease, and stroke. Low vitamin D levels in the blood strongly influence the risk of diabetes and heart disease. Apolipoprotein E is a gene mutation test that identifies advanced risk for both heart disease and Alzheimer's disease. And factor V Leiden is a gene mutation test that strongly influences your risk of developing clots in your bloodstream. The third profile I recommend is a cardiovascular inflammation profile that includes two tests. The cardiac CRP, also known as the high sensitivity CRP test, measures the level of inflammation in the body. High inflammation significantly increases the risk of heart disease, diabetes, and many other diseases. The cardiac CRP level is an excellent predictor of heart disease risk, but can be elevated for other reasons as well. The LP-PLA2 test, also known as the plaque test, indicates higher risk for unstable plaque and a greater tendency for the plaque to rupture, causing a clot. This test specifically shows if you have inflammation in the artery wall associated with plaque buildup, representing the risk of a heart attack or stroke. Lastly, I encourage everyone to test iron and ferritin. High levels of iron and the storage form of iron called ferritin represent an increased risk for heart disease and diabetes. I encourage you to take advantage of these heart tests by talking to your doctor. I personally had all these tests done on myself. They have given me specific guidance on how to optimize my health and greatly lower my risk of cardiovascular and other diseases. If you have diabetes or prediabetes, it's also very important to evaluate your kidney function. High blood sugars cause kidney damage and even failure. Unfortunately, symptoms of kidney disease don't appear until the very late stages, when the kidneys have already sustained severe damage. The only way to identify the problem sooner is through testing. Talk to your doctor about ordering a renal panel to evaluate your kidney function. High blood sugars can also damage the liver. In fact, the majority of diabetics have fatty liver disease. Liver damage can occur from excess fat intake or as a side effect of many diabetic and cholesterol-lowering medications. Talk to your doctor about tests to evaluate your liver function. Did you know that diabetics are almost twice as likely to have a thyroid problem as non-diabetics? Poor thyroid function impairs circulation, increasing the risk of heart disease and all diabetes-related complications. You can evaluate your thyroid function with a thyroid panel test. For more information on these tests and others, I recommend reading Chapter 10 in my book, Goodbye Diabetes, which can be found at dryoungberg.com or on Amazon. There you will find specific details on various tests and optimal lab values as well. Sometimes lab values that are considered standard aren't really optimal. Levels can be based on national averages instead of what's actually the healthiest goal. That's why I encourage you to check out the chapter and compare your test results with the optimal levels found there. I also encourage you to find a healthcare provider who is well trained in lifestyle and functional nutritional medicine. Someone with this background will be more knowledgeable about some of these tests and better equipped to help you understand your results. And that, my friend, concludes our testing section. I encourage you to take advantage of the various tests we've learned about throughout this section. Test your blood sugars, test your pancreas, test your heart health, but don't expect those test results to stay the same. In the next section, we'll begin discovering the powerful lifestyle strategies that can turn your health upside down, or should I say, right side up. By this time, you should have a pretty good idea of how to evaluate your blood sugars. This is very important, but blood sugars are just one piece in the puzzle. You can also learn a lot by testing how well your pancreas is functioning. The pancreas is a 6-inch long gland that sits behind your stomach. It's responsible for several important tasks. The pancreas secretes digestive enzymes to help you absorb your food. It also secretes several hormones, one of which is insulin. Insulin is produced in the beta cells of the pancreas. As we've learned before, when blood sugars rise, a healthy pancreas responds by secreting insulin, which allows the sugar into the cells. This stabilizes your blood sugars. People with type 1 diabetes have damaged beta cells that no longer produce insulin. People with type 2 diabetes still produce insulin, but their cells are resistant to it. This forces the pancreas to work extra hard. Over time, it can become fatigued and damaged. When this happens, type 2 diabetes can eventually become more like type 1 diabetes. If you have diabetes, it's important to evaluate how well your pancreas is functioning. Let's look at some tests that can help. Testing insulin levels. You can learn how well your pancreas is functioning by testing the amount of insulin in your blood. As long as you aren't taking insulin injections, your natural insulin levels can reveal how hard your pancreas is working to control your blood sugars. A person with type 1 diabetes will have very low insulin levels, even after a meal. This means that the pancreas has been damaged. A person with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes may have really high insulin levels, especially after eating. This indicates that the body is resistant to insulin and the pancreas is overworking to make up for it. Unfortunately, all this extra insulin is dangerous. Did you know that high insulin levels increase the risk for several diseases, including heart disease, hypertension, obesity, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, infertility, and the list goes on? That's another reason why it's so important to battle insulin resistance. As you work to overcome it, you will decrease your risk of many diseases, not just diabetes. The fasting insulin test measures your insulin levels after not eating overnight. It can be measured at the same time as your fasting blood sugar. This test is only effective for people who aren't taking insulin injections, because injecting insulin would alter the results. Here's what your fasting insulin level means. A level of 10 or higher indicates insulin resistance and significantly increases your risk for disease. A level below 7 is much healthier, and below 5 is excellent. Remember, this is a fasting level. Insulin levels should naturally fluctuate depending on blood sugars. If your insulin level is low when your blood sugar is high, that's not good, because it means your pancreas isn't producing insulin when you need it the most. If your fasting insulin level is high, don't despair. The strategies you learn through this course can increase your insulin sensitivity and bring those levels back down. The 2-hour insulin test shows how your pancreas responds to glucose. Sometimes a person's fasting insulin level will be normal, but their 2-hour level will be very high. sugar in the blood can make insulin levels rise dramatically. The 2-hour test mirrors how your body responds to carbohydrates in your meal. This test can be taken at the same time as the 2-hour glucose tolerance test. Your blood will be drawn 2 hours after you drink a sweet glucose drink. Your 2-hour insulin level should be less than 25, although less than 10 is optimal. A level above 25 indicates insulin resistance. C-peptide test. When someone develops diabetes, it's important to know if it's type 1 or type 2. One way to determine this is insulin testing. But sometimes people are prescribed insulin without knowing what type of diabetes they actually have. The extra insulin from their injections will skew the results of an insulin test. This problem can be solved by taking the C-peptide test. C-peptide is a protein that the pancreas releases every time it releases insulin. The level of C-peptide corresponds with the level of insulin released. By measuring C-peptide, it's possible to identify how much insulin the pancreas is producing, even if someone is also taking insulin injections. The C-peptide test is usually used to identify whether someone has type 1 or type 2 diabetes. A low level indicates type 1 diabetes, while a medium or high level indicates type 2 diabetes. There's also an experimental new way to use the C-peptide test. Since the test measures how well your pancreas is functioning, it can also reveal the extent of your pancreatic damage. This can actually reveal what your long-term chances are of being able to control your blood sugars through lifestyle alone, without the need for insulin. To perform this test, your blood will be drawn an hour after drinking a glucose drink or eating a carbohydrate-rich meal. Here's what the results mean. When measuring C-peptide 1 hour after sugar intake, a level under 2 nanograms per milliliter indicates severe pancreatic damage. Although lifestyle interventions can still improve health, most likely there will be an ongoing need for insulin. A level between 2 and 4 means that the pancreas is damaged but is still functioning. At this level, there's a 50-50 chance that someone can address the problem through lifestyle alone. A C-peptide level above 4 means that the pancreas is functioning well. A person at this level has roughly a 95% chance of eventually being able to control their blood sugars with no insulin or other medications. It's important to note that these guidelines are experimental, not official, but I believe they are valuable. But remember, don't make any changes to your insulin or medication regime without consulting your doctor. Even if your pancreas is functioning well, you may still need extra insulin for the time being. I've found that many of my clients gain a lot of hope from the C-peptide test. I still remember Nathan, a 76-year-old man who came to my office with extremely high blood sugars, sometimes as high as 500. Nathan had already had a stroke and several heart attacks. His prognosis didn't seem very good. Even though he was injecting insulin several times a day, his blood sugars were still out of control. Nathan was ready to just give up hope. But I still remember the look on his face when I explained to him what his C-peptide results meant. His level was over 5. This meant that his pancreas was actually functioning well. If Nathan would take the health program seriously, he had an excellent chance of reversing the disease and eventually not even needing any medication. "Are you joking?" Nathan said. "You mean to say that even though I'm so unhealthy right now, I could actually undo this thing?" I encouraged Nathan to give it his best shot, and that's exactly what he did. Within a few months of a healthy diet, a strong exercise program, and other lifestyle strategies, Nathan's blood sugars had stabilized and he was no longer on insulin. And all this started when Nathan gained hope from a C-peptide test. The good news is that the vast majority of people with type 2 diabetes have fairly high C-peptide levels. This means that if they take aggressive action to address their health, they have a really good chance of eventually controlling their blood sugars without medication. For the smaller percentage of diabetics who have sustained more pancreatic damage, the C-peptide test offers a realistic expectation for what to expect in the future. Lifestyle strategies can still be powerful for improving health and reducing disease risk, but these people will still need to take at least some insulin in the future, and that's okay. I encourage you to talk to your doctor about having your insulin and/or C-peptide levels checked. Don't forget to pay attention to your pancreas.